Morning, everyone. My name is Carolyn. I'm from Midwest Manufacturing, and we are excited to have you here for one of our Wednesday webinars. Today we have Chris DuFresne from VitalWay Digital. I can speak, and he is going to be speaking with us about marketing for manufacturers, how to leverage social media to market your business. So at this point, I wanted to let you know that we are recording this and it will be available in our YouTube channel. And I will send you the link to that. And also, if you have questions, you can either enter them in the chat or you can just turn on your microphone and ask questions at that point. So, all right, I am going to turn it over to you, Chris.
All right. Thanks, Carolyn. And all, you're welcome to come off mute and ask questions throughout the presentation. It's much better if it's conversational and not just somebody talking the whole time. So appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I hope that you find value in what I'm sharing and that it pertains to the role that you play in your organizations. So objectives today are to help you all understand how social media can be used for good and how it can be used to drive growth. So I say for good on purpose because we hear a lot of negative things about social media, right? The impact to kids, et cetera. And of course, that is reality. And we want to continue to overcome that and use social for good purposes, good reasons. You'll probably notice now that I say this, more and more brands are focused on providing helpful information to their, social media audiences rather than just some of the gimmicky stuff that you see out there. And that's really the focus that I have and I believe in is how do you provide good, helpful information through your social media channels, which then bring people into your organization over time. So that's the first objective. The second is to provide enough information to help you develop the start of a social media strategy and begin executing it. So I'll share a little bit about myself just to give some context for the point of view that I'll be sharing on this webinar, along with we'll talk about the social media landscape, some key terminology, the business of social, and then how to develop a social media strategy in 7 steps. So by way of background, my name is Chris DuFresne. I live in Hugo, Minnesota, just north of the Twin Cities. I jokingly say that I pretty much live in Canada with my wife, Amy, and our 2 children. My career started in retail. I was there 13 years at Marshall Field's and Macy's headquarters in Minneapolis, and then Target.com and Target Canada. I worked at Allina Health. For those not in Minnesota and Wisconsin, Allina Health is a hospital and clinic health system, about 12 hospitals, 100 some clinics, mostly in Minnesota and Western Wisconsin. I come from a family of manufacturers. My grandfather owned a sheet metal fabrication company in Maplewood, Minnesota. My father owned a sheet metal manufacturing company as well in Vadnais Heights, Minnesota for about 25 years. And I worked there 12 years old to 16 years old cleaning bathrooms. So I started out in the manufacturing space and have a deep appreciation for it. I've also got 25 plus years of nonprofit leadership. Currently on the board of Twin Cities Catholic Charities, was involved in the University of St. Thomas's programs, and then also lead the board of the Hugo Good Neighbors Food Shelf. My undergraduate degree is in marketing and finance from St. Thomas, as well as my MBA. And then the QR code there brings you to my LinkedIn page. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. There aren't many Chris DuFresne, so you can search for me and you'll probably find me. I know there is one other because on LinkedIn every year on my birthday, he says happy birthday, and it cracks me up every year. So a little bit about VitalWay Digital, and I'm not doing this as any sort of sales pitch. I'm doing this to kind of give some context for the perspective that I'm bringing today. I look at the world of digital agencies and marketing agencies as really on a spectrum. On one side, you got very transactional agencies who are focused on productivity and might have more of a niche area that they focus on, such as building websites or handling social media or focused on marketing strategy. On the right side, then, the other side, you've got the larger scale agencies that have a lot of capabilities, but the price point is often pretty high because of all of the overhead associated with large agencies. And they're very focused on the actual, like the project, but not always the measurable results. And so with VitalWay, my goal is to be in the middle, and that is to work with very purpose-driven organizations. The phrase I like to use is helping good people doing good work do more good. And we do that by being authentic. And that is important to understand as I go through this content, because I'm not a believer in the whimsical social media. I do think that works for certain product categories and brands, but in general, especially for manufacturing, you want to get the word out there about your product to the right audience and really show kind of a command and knowledge of your space to bring people in to either want to purchase your product or to bring employees in from a talent attraction perspective, or whatever your main goal might be. And we'll talk more about that. The Vital Way is focused on purpose-driven for those organizations doing good in the community, such as manufacturing, really looking at working together as more of a partnership and not like a vendor-supplier relationship. Being authentic and showing your organization's brand and being upfront with you on what you can expect, and sometimes a perspective that may be different than the one that you have. We like to be innovative. You've heard, of course, about AI. Who hasn't? I believe AI is an important tool, but it's a tool. It is not intended to overtake everything. Could it in some spaces? Probably, maybe. But I think people really crave a human touch. And so I believe in using AI as a tool, but not so far as replacing the humanity that we have. Being agile and nimble, because we know that everything is changing, especially right now. Things can change from day to day, week to week. And then lastly, being really results focused. And you'll see that as I walk through this information of how do you measure results beyond just like number of impressions. So, the number of people who saw your ad, and really look at things like how many people actually bought your product or completed your lead generation form on your website. So that focus on helping good people doing good work do more good is really important to me. The services we provide as VitalWay Digital are everything from the strategy and consulting side to web design, development, and maintenance, along with social media, the strategy, but also execution and monitoring of it, and email marketing and CRM. So that's a lot. You don't need all of those necessarily. And that's where we work to figure out what makes sense for you, what fits within your budget, and we'll show you the results that you need. So enough about me and VitalWay Digital. Let's talk about social media. So using the chat or come off mute, looking for some audience participation here. What are some perceptions that you have of social media? When you hear social media, what comes to mind? And it can be positive or negative, totally fine. So I'm going to wait awkwardly here while some people type in the chat or unmute. The question is, what are your perceptions of social? What comes to mind when you hear somebody say social media? I'll play the Jeopardy music here. Somebody's got to help me out here.
I know for me, when I hear social media, I think of them trying to sell you things and kids going down the wrong path. It's kind of, for whatever reason, more of a negative when you hear about it.
The JMD office says can be used productively, but it seems majority is fluff. Agreed. That's definitely something we all see out there. So thanks, you guys. So when we think of social media, it can be many different things. And you are probably familiar with many, if not all, of these logos that are up here. Now, don't be intimidated by this and thinking that you need to have a presence on every single one. You don't. You want to have a presence on the ones that make sense based on the goals that you have and what you're trying to do as an organization. Oftentimes, if you're in like a business to business type organization where your customers, other businesses, LinkedIn is really a good platform to consider. Oftentimes we can think of LinkedIn as just seeing where people are moving or looking for jobs and whatnot. But honestly, a lot of people go there and look for what's happening in their network. And you can see sometimes sponsored ads that show up. And if those are relevant to you, you do notice them. Of course, sometimes you just scroll past them because they're not always 100% relevant. But that's where having the right strategy and setting up your campaign correctly is really important to make sure you're getting in front of the right audience. Facebook and Instagram are really popular as well. Facebook, more the older population, like me. Unfortunately, now my kids are like, Dad, Facebook's for old people, but my kids are on Facebook. They just don't admit it. And then Instagram, has a much broader range. It has older folks, but also a lot of younger folks. And then all of these other ones, of course, you have your own perceptions of what these are, but you need to work with the ones that make sense for your brand. And we'll talk more about that as we go. So some key terminology that's important to be aware of is this concept of organic and paid social. So organic, think of that as pages or companies that the user has opted to follow. So when you say follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Facebook, et cetera, those are really the people who are like opting in and want to hear more information from you. The nice thing is there's really no direct cost. You don't have to pay to post it. Of course, you got to pay for the creative content, the copy, et cetera, and the time to do it, but you're not having to pay the platform anything to get that information out there. The challenge is it's limited reach. It's only going to those people who have followed you, and depending on how the algorithm of the platform determines which content gets put in front of that person. If somebody has reacted to your content, like clicking the like button, resharing it, making comments, and comments are the most powerful way for people to show engagement, then the platform is more likely to keep showing that organic post to those people. What it means is you're continuing to get to the people who already like you, which can be really good in many ways, but depending on your goal, it may not be as helpful. And that's where paid comes in. So paid is where companies pay to place an ad, if you will, within people's social media feeds. The benefit here is an expanded reach, and you can really tailor and target to your audience. And so an example is on the right side. You'll see at the very top left, it's peaceful profits, and you'll see promoted, right? That word promoted, or in some platforms sponsored, is what tells you that it's an ad. A lot of times people don't really notice that, but they're looking at the information. And this is where you want to avoid the fluff. You want to avoid the whimsical stuff. And this is where, if you want to get people to notice your information, you want to have something compelling. And oftentimes that is sharing of information, sharing of knowledge, sharing of perspective, or working to gain a perspective from your audience by asking a question. That's a compelling question that people will want to comment on. And having really good graphics too. You can't just have text. You can't just always use stock images. Sometimes it's an illustration, kind of like what you see in the example here. And you need to vary it up. Sometimes it's video, sometimes it's a photo, sometimes it's an illustration. But you really do need to make sure that you are thinking about the graphic presentation of your ad. A lot of times too, actually not a lot of times, every time, the platforms are using algorithms to identify who is going to see your ad. Much of that is based on what you program in at the beginning. You might say, I want this age group of people in this location or with these job titles. And generally speaking, the platforms do a really good job at getting to those users. A lot of times the algorithms will also use their own methodology to identify people to send the ad, to put the ad in front of. And that's based upon the data that they've seen. It can be like the people who have a propensity to interact with that type of ad historically, whether it be from your company or from another. And the benefit to the platform is that shows you as the advertiser more value and gets you to continue spending and maybe increase your spend on that platform. Which brings me to the business of social media. Understanding what motivates the social media platforms and not just your user is important. Of course, it should be about the end user, but we also need to understand the business model of these platforms so that you can figure out how to leverage the platforms to their fullest, and honestly, sometimes how to game the system. So social media's number one is keeping the user in the platform. They want people to stay there. They don't want people to click links that go out to Safari or Chrome or your browser, or links that open up a new window. They want people to stay in their platform. And so the more people interact with your information, watch your video, make a comment, the more likely your posts are going to show up in people's feeds organically, or if you're paying, it'll increase the likelihood that they show up as well. Their other main goal is selling advertising. And the way to do that is for them to show value to both the end user and the advertiser. If all the users just start getting irritated with the ads, that's not going to keep them on the platform. And so that's why Facebook and all of them really moderate the ads to make sure that they're appropriate and relevant before putting them out or before approving them to go out to the platform. The social media organizations also want to drive user engagement. They want people to comment, not just like, but really comment and engage with it. Because again, that helps fulfill the purpose of keeping the user in the platform, which helps the user see more advertising, which drives the bottom line of social media. And they want to build their network. They like, if your ad gets more people to follow you, that is engagement. And they like that because that, again, keeps them in the platform and drives their business model. Any questions so far? Feel free to use the chat or come off mute. All right. So let's talk about developing a social media strategy in 7 steps. So the first is you want to identify your goal, right? I mean, this is pretty basic, but it's really important. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to increase sales? Are you trying to identify leads? Engage with your existing customers to kind of continue to build your reputation with them and drive awareness? Are you trying to recruit talent? Are you trying to improve your margin by getting your product in front of people who are more likely to pay a higher price point for it? Or are you looking to reduce inventory and really having a promotion to try to flush out some of the prior year's model that you want to clear out before you bring in the new one, for example? A lot of times you're going to have multiple goals, and that's okay. Every single social media channel doesn't necessarily just have one purpose, right? LinkedIn, for example, you can use that as a means of helping people see your brand and that you're out there, but it can also allow you to show that you're out there for people who might want to work for you in the future from a recruiting perspective. So develop your goals. That is number 1. Number 2, who do you want to reach? So determine your audience is the technical term for this. When you think about who you want to reach, is it other businesses? So is it business to business, B2B? Is it end users or B2C, as you've probably heard? Distributors, sales reps, prospective talent, or your employees? And again, it can be many of these. It might just mean that you have multiple campaigns where you define a different audience based on what you want them to do, which we'll talk about in a minute. Within the platforms, and each one varies a little bit, you can define the age ranges of people, various demographics such as gender, financial demographics, race, etc., what salary or financial level the people are at, what size of business they are, especially on like a LinkedIn, or their title, what location, so where are they? Do you want them in a certain geography, nationally, internationally? And then also psychosocial characteristics. So do you want people who have a propensity to purchase a product through that platform? And again, you might have many of these, and that's where you want to identify each one, and your content plan for each of these might be different based upon that audience and the goals. The third step then is, what do you want the user to do? What action do you want them to take? Do you want them to buy a product directly from the platform or a link somewhere else to your website? Again, you're going to benefit most from trying to sell it through the platform because that is allowing people to stay on it, which again is one of those key business goals of the platform. Do you want them to call you? Do you want them to complete a contact us form, send you an email, schedule a meeting, review job postings? Do you want them to feel more comfortable and confident about a previous purchase? And do you maybe want them to recognize your brand more, awareness? So understanding what you want them to do is really important in curating what you're going to share with them and in how you're going to measure the results. Now, what are you going to say and how? So this is the content plan. What's the call to action? So when you hear call to action, sometimes acronym CTA, it's like the button in an email that says, click here to learn more or click here to contact us. You want the call to action to be really clear, but what you want it to say can vary depending on your audience and the goals and what the action is you want the user to take. What information do you want to convey? Do you want to convey information about a new product launch? Do you want to convey why your company manufactures a better product than somebody else? Do you want to convey a keep it local mentality or buy US made goods, whatever it may be, understanding what it is that you want to convey that's going to help drive that action. And again, hit that goal that you set at the beginning. What format are you going to use? Video, images, illustrations? Now, something really important to talk about here is, related to that bullet point, but the next, which is what type of content. So do you want it to be user generated or professional? The fluffy stuff that you sometimes see and that doesn't always resonate with people is when it's too good content. Okay, so when I say that, it could be like a professionally done video that you can tell was done in a studio. Sometimes that works, but sometimes it's better to have something that's a little more scrappy. Maybe somebody just using their phone to record the video and posting it on the platform. The beauty happens in the editing. Okay, so yes, you can use a pretty low fidelity, and actually the cameras on iPhones and Androids are pretty darn good these days, but you can really make an impression by having the right editing done to that content. So video has a key place, but not everyone can listen to a video, which is why you want to make sure you have captions on it for the people who can't turn audio on, or that you want to have images once in a while instead of video to capture that type of audience, right? So here's also where you determine which platforms you're going to use, because if you're really going to push images and video, well, YouTube is great for that. Obviously, Instagram, Facebook, I mean, they can all play in that space some, but some platforms people expect video more often than others. So really important is, how will you measure success? Most of what you do in your organization, you're thinking about, if I spend this, if I make this investment in this equipment or in adding a staff member to this type of role, you're wanting to get value from it. Well, the same should happen with your marketing dollars. In the old days, it was harder to measure the value of marketing. So think a billboard. It's hard to know exactly how many people took action based upon that billboard. Now, with modern marketing, there are some ways to try to get at that, like using a unique link. You can't really use a QR code because it's kind of hard to scan a QR code when you're driving and not safe. So with digital, you can really measure that success. And so the measures you want to think about is it the number of impressions? So it's a buzzword, it's a key term. That is the number of people's feeds that your post or ad appeared in. So that's good if you're looking to just raise awareness. You want to get your brand, your product in front of people so that later on when you have an ask of them, or later on when they're in a store and see a product or something that you've manufactured, then they're going to take action. The second is the number of comments, reactions, shares. So think of that as engagement. If one of your goals is to engage your audience more and not only drive awareness, then you're going to want to look at how many people actually interact with it. Another really key one would be number of orders or contact us forms completed, phone calls, inbound emails, whatever it may be. But that is a really key one. And there are various ways that you can track that. For phone calls, you can use a different phone number that just auto forwards, as long as you can see how many people are using that phone number, for example, right? So that's a key capability you need in whatever platform you would use for that. Inbound emails, you might use a unique email address for a campaign so that you can see how many people reached out based upon that campaign. Number of people clicking on the ad and getting to your website. So if you're looking for on your website metrics of where your traffic is coming from. And for those familiar, you can also use Google tags, UTM codes, techie term, to really understand how somebody is interacting with an ad. And then also determining how often you're going to report out. It probably doesn't make sense to report daily. These platforms, usually you want to run a campaign for a minimum of 5 days, because if you think about yourself and people around you, there are some people who are on these platforms every day. There's a lot of people who aren't on them every day. It might be that it's more common for people to be on them on a Saturday or Sunday. And so you want to have your campaigns last over a period of time to capture a broad variety of users. Next, step 6, time to make it happen, execute. Honestly, this was more the easy part. Creating those goals, understanding what you're trying to get your user to do, and then the content that tells that story are the challenging parts. Executing is a little easier. So if you don't already have a profile on a platform, of course, you want to build that out. You want that page to have enough information about you, videos, photos, etc., to really build your credibility with that user. You're going to generate that content, the words, the images, videos. Yes, you can use AI to help with this, but again, it gets to that authenticity. If you only use AI, people can tell. It's becoming more and more obvious. And yes, as AI improves, it might become less obvious, but people are still pretty good at sniffing out like what's real, has a human touch, and what doesn't. So using like ChatGPT to finesse the copy that you're going to use works great. Personally, I find that if you tell ChatGPT that you're making a social post, it throws a lot of emojis in it. I'm not a huge fan of emojis when you're trying to convey credibility, right? It gets to that fluffy comment earlier. Then you need to build out your advertising and audience criteria, and submit it for approval. And usually that happens pretty quickly, as long as you're not submitting something controversial, and then it becomes a lot tougher in the advertising space. You got to set a budget, and then you post it, or you can schedule it. You can have the platform many times figure out when's the optimum time to be running that campaign. So there's various options depending on the platform. Really important, and I notice a lot of brands miss this, is monitoring and responding to comments. Your users are taking time to interact. If they're asking a question or saying, oh, I really love my blah, blah, blah product, or I love working with ABC Manufacturing, you want to, as the company, reply to each of those comments and thank them, or engage them further. Say, hey, that's awesome. I'm glad you like us. Tell us a little bit more. That also helps reward your activity on the platform, and the platform rewards you by getting your content in front of more people because you're helping keep people on the platform. So that monitoring, don't forget that. That is very important. So step 7, how'd it go? Most projects have a lessons learned at the end. If you're using various like Six Sigma methods, lean in your organization, you're constantly assessing how did it go and what can you learn and how can you do different. The same should happen with marketing. So you want to look at what worked, what didn't. Did you achieve your goals? Did you get the number of people to fill out your lead gen form on your website, for example? What might you do different next time? Was the budget sufficient? So if you set a budget of $50 and you got 10 people, but you wanted 50 people, well, maybe you need to spend more to get those people in, okay? Sometimes it can be too much. You might try, like if you spend $500 on a post and you only see like 10 responses, next time try 250, you might still see 10 responses. So you got to play around with that and continue to learn based upon what you're finding. So in wrap, the objectives we had at the beginning were to help you understand how social can be used for good and how it can be used to drive growth in your organization, and wanted to make sure we're providing enough information to help you get started in your social media journey and begin executing it. So thank you for joining. I'm going to take some questions here in just a minute. And you can scan that QR code if you'd like to connect on LinkedIn. Happy to do it. And feel free to reach out if you've got other questions, or if you want to hear more. One of the key things that we do at VitalWay, we are focused on manufacturing as well as medical practices and nonprofits. So those are our 3 key focus areas. And on the manufacturing side and small and mid-sized businesses, figuring out where can we do the work for you on an ongoing basis and not just a set and forget. Or if you have a marketing team, how do we augment your marketing team to execute some of the work and help with the strategy so that you don't have to and you can spend that time focused on other activities. So feel free to reach out. Always happy to help. And with that, just a summary, the 7 key steps in developing your social media strategy. What do you want to achieve? Who do you want to reach? What do you want them to do? What are you going to say and how are you going to say it? How are you going to measure success? Make it happen, and then finding out and looking at how to go. So with that, any questions, feel free to come off mute, put it in the chat. I'll sing happy birthday to myself in my head. That's what I've heard is like the amount of time it takes to get people to speak up. All right, I am not seeing any questions, but if you're too shy to ask and want to just reach out one-to-one, feel free to do so. Again, my contact info is there. So thank you very much. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Carolyn, I'll send it back to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris. That was super informative. Yeah, that's a space I'm not familiar with, so that was really interesting to hear about. So, for those of you who are on the chat or on the recording here, we will be sending that to you later today, and to everyone else who registered that wasn't able to make it. We invite you to go to our YouTube channel and watch all our webinar videos. There's a lot of great experience and knowledge out there. So. All right, Chris. Well, thanks again. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yep. Bye.